Today is April 9th, and we are in Uvalde, Texas. I am Jorge Haynes with the Voices History Project, and I'm interviewing Eleazar Lugo. Thank you, Mr. Lugo, for taking the time to talk about the Uvalde walkout with us today.
Welcome.
Let's start with your childhood. What was it like growing up in Uvalde?
It wasn't very difficult. From that point in time, I saw nothing out of the ordinary. They would put me in a position to point out difficulties, or other than the fact, the schools were segregated to the point where you only dealt with Mexicans as your classmates. Mm-hmm. There were 3 schools. One of them was primarily whites, one was Mexicans, and one was in the neighborhood where they had both of them because of the way the district was marked. They had to include them, and I noticed that those kids, as I grew older and got into junior high and interacted with them, the Mexicans were more outgoing, more how would you say that? Interacting with the whites.
Because they had gone to school?
Because they had already gone to school with them.
So they knew each other?
Yeah, and in that sense, yeah.
What did you think of your teachers?
They were very strict. In junior high, in elementary. I don't know because what reason they kind of doubted the students in example, having to go to the bathroom. They wouldn't allow you to go, because you're lying, you're making it up, you're whatever reason was, just simple as that. Yeah. They didn't believe you. They didn't.
Simple routine things became a little more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. What kinds of things did your parents expect of you?
They didn't. They were migrants, and we'd go up north and then come back. And as far as expectations from them, they didn't have any. My siblings had all got into school and graduated and got married, and that was it. There's no really.
It stayed in this area.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
According to my mom, I was going to be an abogado, which is either a lawyer or an engineer. To her, that's what I would say. But I really didn't have any set occupation I wanted to get into, or any direction I wanted to go.
Was your family religious?
Yes.
How did the religion help shape your life?
On that, we would go to church on Sundays and participate in functions that the church had. But my neighbor across the street was a preacher, so I interacted with his family. He had a son that was about my age, about a year older. So I was over constantly at his house, and being from a totally different religion as the rest of the neighborhood, because most of them were Catholic.
Right.
Really, I didn't associate with them in any form as far as the religious aspect of their church.
And what was your religious affiliation?
We went to the Assembly of God.
Some of God.
And then,
Well, as you were growing up, you were in a school that was primarily Mexican, and there was another school that was primarily white. Did you notice any racial or ethnic tensions between the two groups?
no, because they were totally miles apart as far as that went, but there was no interactivities going on between the schools. You had your own field day. It was just your school. Their field day was their school, and so you never interacted with anybody else except your school. There was, no field trips. On field trips, you'd go by your class in school, and so you'd never really associated with anybody else other than your school.
Do you recall how your parents felt about the schools in Uvalde?
No, they were indifferent. My parents got here from Mexico, so I'm the first generation American in my family. So
when you were young, do you remember any Mexican American leaders in the city?
No.
Not really. Okay. When you were in elementary school, were you allowed to speak Spanish?
No. No, Spanish wasn't allowed.
Did you or anyone you know ever get punished for speaking Spanish?
Oh yeah, they were spanked. They were paddled. And I've always, throughout my life, I've always said, America is the only place in the world that you're educated if you know English. That's it. Everybody else knows 2 or 3 different languages, but in America, you know English, you're educated. Yeah. And there's no room for, there wasn't at the time for a language other than English. So it's just...
I think you already answered it, but how did children of different races and ethnicities play together? Did the Anglo and Mexican American kids play together?
They didn't. Everybody... You had the Mexican Park, which is primarily where you went. As I was growing up, I did interact with the Anglos in town because I lived a block from the golf course. And we would go and caddy for the golfers. So we in that sense, we did interact with the adults, but not with the kids.
Tell me a little bit about your teachers. Were there Mexican American teachers in your school?
None. I was going to bring a letter. I looked for it and I couldn't find it. About the first Mexican American teacher, and the problems that were created by her being a teacher, the threats that her parents got, and they're all written in that letter that not the letter they got is a threat, not, this is not hearsay, this is the actual written word as a threat.
The entire family?
The father was threatened, the daughter was threatened, she was the...
Were there some teachers that the kids were afraid of?
Yeah. Yeah. Miss Ratloff, she was mean. She was I think she was a 3rd grade teacher. Very mean.
Was she mean with everybody or just with certain?
Everybody. No, she's just a mean disposition woman. She was and the principal, everybody kind of scared of the principal, Mr. Shannon. He was a mean person too. So it just
If you had to describe yourself in the school, how would you describe yourself as a school child?
As a student in elementary, I was just there. Nothing, being a migrant, I was classified as a slow learner because of the way we had to get out of school to go to work and the way we had to come back late to go work. I mean, after working. So the classification they put on me was that I was a slow learner. Not necessarily being slow, but because I would miss out so much on the...
So you would miss at the end of the school and at the beginning
At the beginning of the school, I'd be taken out and miss at the end of school because...
3 weeks, 4 weeks?
Probably about 2 or 3 weeks every summer, in the beginning and in the end.
Then you moved on to middle school. How was your middle school experience?
Middle school, West Main was the first time we interacted with Anglos because it was the mixed class, mixed grades. There were 2 grades only, 4th and 5th grade. And no, 5th and 6th. And that was a totally different experience because we were older and still there was a separation. We did interact with the kids, but there's still separation in the Anglos and the Mexicans.
So in the school, it was a mixed school?
Yeah, this was just the 2 grades, and it was it used to be the old high school, and they made it into the 5th and 6th grade. So they had to have both races combined.
And once again, the teachers in middle school, were they all the same?
Yeah, they couldn't discriminate so blatantly. Okay, put it that way, because there was interaction, and by then, like I said, we were getting to know them, getting to associate with them, with the Anglos. So it was a different experience.
You had to bond in some sort of
way.
way.
I mean, you were with them all day long, so you had to have a.
You mentioned that your family was a migrant family. What was that like?
I think it was one of my best memories. Being a migrant, it was the work wasn't hard, but it was long. We put in long days. Being young, I wasn't actually doing any work, but we were out there. And
where did you work?
In Montana.
Montana. What were you picking?
We were doing beets, sugar beets.
Sugar beets.
Yeah.
And your whole family went?
Yep. All 10 of us. And we were doing probably 2,000 acres.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had a large...
Just your family, or?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you came back, how were the kids that showed up late because of being a migrant family?
No, there was no nothing visible that I could see about that being done, because a lot of them were migrants. A lot of them, and some of them wouldn't go up to Montana. They wouldn't go, but they would go to North Texas. They would go up to Arkansas. They would go to California. Different. Not everybody went to the same state.
So you didn't feel very different because you were a migrant?
Mm-mm. I'd say one thing, I wish a lot more people were migrants, because the health-wise, because you get up in the morning, you have your breakfast and go work, and you walk. We had some fields that had 1 mile-long rows. So you had to walk all day long at 1 mile, 2 miles on the turn, and you'd be out there all day long. So, health-wise, they're good.
Yeah.
a lot better than sitting around watching,
You
eating.
were getting in shape whether you
Yeah.
wanted to or not.
Whether, yeah.
So when you would come back, did you look forward to going to school?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I was indifferent.
You could have take it or leave it. Did your parents, were they able to help you with homework assignments?
No. You know, I don't mean to say I was super smart. I don't mean to brag or anything. But I never studied. I never studied. I never did my homework after school. I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do my homework and be ready for school.
You already used to getting up at 5 o'clock.
So I'd get up early and I'd do my homework. But after school, I'd just go and play. And I never studied. Even in high school,
When you say go play, what would you go play?
at the golf course. We were in front of the house was a big old lot that was empty. It was overgrown with trees and stuff. It was a monte, really. And we'd go in there and we had caves. We had, we had trails and tree forts and all sorts of stuff because kids in the neighborhood would just get together and do something.
And so then we get to, were you ever in trouble in middle school?
No.
So then we get to high school. Tell me about your teachers in high school.
There again, I never studied. The teachers, by then, they realized that I wasn't a slow learner. In junior high, I was president of the student council. In high school, I was in the student council. I was president of the French club. I could go to the counselor and tell her I want to change classes, and I'd change my class. I didn't have to have a reason or nothing, just go in there and tell her. I was an A and B student, mostly A's, but I never cracked a book. It's all, I retained everything that they...
Would your parents go to school for PTA?
No. No.
We've heard that when kids got to high school as freshmen, that they would start to be tracked. They would get a card and be put in one of two groups, either the college group or the not going to college group. Did this happen to you?
Yeah. It happened to me as college group.
Huh?
It happened to me as college group.
They put you in the college group?
Yeah. Because like I said, they realized that I wasn't a slow learner. I was.
So because you were in a college group, did that make a difference in the classes you got offered?
Yeah, it did. You had the higher classes in math and English and literature. They're different teachers. So it did.
Did you notice when you were in high school that Mexican-American students were treated any differently from Anglo students?
No.
By the time you got to high school,
it was just
everybody's in the
everybody
same
was there. And then
did you attend college?
I went to St. Edward's University for 2 years right after the walkout. It wasn't my choice to go there, but it was because of the walkout. The superintendent advised the draft board of all the male students that were in the walkout. And they received their draft notice, the ones that weren't going to school. Shocker?
So, to be clear, you're saying that the kids that walked out, the male kids that walked out, somehow their lottery number came up?
Well, mine was a high number. Mine was like 167, so I wasn't in any. chance of getting drafted because I think the lottery stopped like in the low 80s or something like that. So I wasn't my possibility of getting drafted wasn't there. But a lot of the ones that were low were drafted if they didn't go to school. So, but they were, like I said, they were at
because you went to college, you got a 2S deferment?
No, like I said, my lottery number was high.
It was high.
So it didn't matter if I went to college or not. But
how did you navigate college?
I didn't. Like I said, that wasn't my choice. I made some friends, and then again, I didn't study, but that was different there. It was a lot harder, and being a religious school, the nuns kind of didn't appreciate that fact. And most of the teachers were nuns or brothers. Every now and then I did have a person that wasn't. But I didn't feel that was what I wanted.
So after 2 years, you decided to?
Well, I came back here and got a job, and then I got married. And
how did you meet your spouse?
At a Halloween carnival at school. I was introduced to her by her cousin. Older guy. Yeah. She was a freshman and I was a junior, senior.
And you're still together?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So let's get over to the walkout. How old were you when the walkout started?
I was 19. 19.
What did you know anything about teacher George Garza?
Oh yeah, he went to the same church we did. So I knew him on a personal basis, and I knew him as a teacher. And I think the walkout itself was more in support of him because of the actual school system was already being brought about. Change was being brought about by different factions that had occurred prior to our walkout, but it was more in support of him that we walked out, not so much to change the school. Though it did change, but the city itself is still the same. It's being run by the same people that ran it back in the 70s. It's nothing's going to change. So the walkout, like I said, it was just in support of George, but change of the education system was coming, whether we walked out or not. And
so the injustices that occurred back in the 70s, somehow they still exist today?
What was it?
Have there been positive changes as a result of the walkout?
Other than the schools being totally integrated, the boundaries have changed, but it makes it harder. I think it was better the way it was because the neighborhood, everybody stayed in their own neighborhood, and now you have one child in one school on one side of town, another child on the other side of town, and then a third child in another school. So you're running all over town trying to get the kids to school, and I think it's worse off.
Interesting. Were you at the school board meeting, that big school board meeting where the walkout was discussed?
No.
Okay. Did you know that was coming though?
No.
Did it surprise you?
Mm-hmm.
To your knowledge, did you all hear about the Crystal City walkout?
Yeah.
How did that walkout affect the Uvalde walkout?
We supported them, and they also came and supported us as far as showing force. The students came out here, and but again, like I said, the change in the system was coming, whether Crystal City, Uvalde, Floresville, wherever, you know.
And when you say the change was coming, was that because of demographic changes? Was it because of political leaders?
I think the political view leaders and view that were realizing that what was going on. I think it had a lot to do with the blacks because of the way they also, you know, integrated schools, and I think that's where it all started, you know, changing.
And when you say that, you're not talking about the blacks in Uvalde, you're talking
No,
about in the
I'm
South.
talking Georgia, Mississippi.
Yeah,
No.
in the South.
In Uvalde, we had maybe 4 families, but they weren't considered blacks.
Right.
They were barrio people. They could speak Spanish and English just as good as we can. And anybody that lived in the neighborhood learned Spanish. There was one Anglo guy that lived in the neighborhood, and one time we had a conversation, myself, Kenneth Durham, which he's a teacher in California, and Dewey Parker, and he passed away. And we were talking about fishing, and the conversation went like, "Hey, Dewey, where'd you go fishing?" "No, hombre, andaba pescando." "Really, ¿qué pescaste?" "Man, I caught a big old fish." And this is Durham, myself, and Dewey speaking English, Spanish, Spanish, English. I mean, the whole conversation just went along and used English, Spanish, black, white, brown, and it didn't matter who was talking. It was the language fluctuated.
If you lived in the neighborhood, you were just a regular.
You learned, yeah.
So you knew about the circumstances surrounding the walkout before the meeting. How did you personally feel about the walkout?
I was all for it. I was considered to be one of the leaders. You can see all the pictures that are I don't know if Alfredo showed you.
Yeah,
they have
yesterday.
Huge amounts of pictures of me, and I think they did that because of, again, I was in the student council. I was, you know, highly visible in school. I was, you know, and
when you did this, because you were a student leader, were there risks involved? Did you have any fears as you were doing this?
No, I didn't. I didn't perceive anything being as a danger or a risk. Though we were under surveillance a lot, you know, but other than that.
How much did you know about everything that was going on with regards to that? Like, you knew you were being watched?
Yeah. We had a huge amount of law enforcement. I mean, you're talking FBI, you're talking Texas Rangers. I mean, there was.
The FBI came down?
They were out here. They were too visible, but they were out here. I mean, you learn to identify people. Put it that way.
People that were never around, and all of a sudden they show up.
Just,
so with everything that was going on that made the walkout, do you think it was something that should have been done?
As far as
was it necessary?
And the walkout?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the whole deal was support for Garza, you know, just to demonstrate that we were backing him up as far as his being terminated. But I don't think the walkout itself was necessary. I think it could have gone a different way, a different route.
So were there attempts to fix the problems before the walkout?
I don't think so.
I think how involved were you in organizing the walkouts?
Like I said, I was one of the leaders, so it was we did a lot. We talked a lot. We planned a lot as to where we were going to demonstrate, how we were going to approach it, how we were going to.
Who were the leaders in your community that were for the walkout?
Mostly there weren't really any people of means that were supporting the walkout, and they had their jobs, they had their views on it, but they weren't going to support and show, come out and actually be in the public eye.
Were there some folks from the community against the walkout?
They were. They mostly parents that didn't want their kids to miss out on school.
They just didn't want school to stop.
Yeah, but they kept their kids in school. So
as a result of the walkout, did some leaders emerge from the walkout?
I think there was nothing really produced on that. I mean, people that were in the walkout, people that helped us, of the 70 class, I don't see anybody that became a leader in the community, that did anything in the community. As a matter of fact, I looked, I think, and I try to see who or where or what we accomplished in as far as our personal lives with the walkout, and I don't see it. I don't see any strides gained by doing it, other than the fact that we did, show force in backing Mr. Garza and.
So, like before the walkout, what was your typical school day like?
Get to school, go to class, and that's it. I played athletics. There really no change that I could see as far as the routine.
During the walkout, what was your typical day like?
We get up in the morning, go out there, and like I said, we planned. In the evenings, we planned what school we were going to target. Get our posters, get our people together. A lot of the older adults, the adults. Young adults would come and support us. They help in more in containing the younger kids, to keep them in line as far as so they wouldn't be off in traffic.
Just to keep the record going, what was your role in the walkout?
Like I said, I was just one of the leaders. I go out there and we discuss strategy. We were get out there and just guide the people around. Really, you couldn't say there was a certain head or just we'll just get together, get a committee and discuss. But there was really nothing specific that somebody did.
And that's how you spread the word about the walkout, is you would get together as a group?
Well, most of anybody that was in the walkout itself was already there. There were nobody going to get out anymore, and there weren't any students dropping out of school to join us. As a matter of fact, some of them were put back into school by the parents.
During the walkout?
During the walkout. Mm-hmm. A lot of the kids went to Crystal City, to school, to continue.
So 30 miles?
30 miles. Yeah.
Some questions here for the parents. I'm skipping through those. So tell me about your first job and your career path.
My first job, after college, I came back home and I got a job with the city. And like I said earlier, from the 70s, the people that control the town still control it today. There's no industry, there's no way. There are just certain amount of jobs, and if you want to have that job, you got to go by their rules. And you can't say, well, if I don't get a raise, I'm going to go find another job, because there isn't any. Okay, I worked for the city for a year, and then I got hired on with a phone company, and I did 30 years there. And that's one of the few jobs that aren't controlled by the people in town. You got the power company, the city, and that's it. I mean, the power company and the phone company.
The phone company, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the city,
Yeah. So, every other job is held by the people that control the town. Being Dickies, which is a manufacturing company, but it's still under the control of the people. The jobs at the airport, which is refurbishing or working on maintenance of the airport, is controlled by the people. All the implement places, the delivery places, the stores. I mean, I've known people that worked at a job for 15 years and never got a raise. I mean, because they control it. I mean, where are you going to go? You need a job, you got to stay there and work. Like I said, the phone company and the power company. The state. Yeah, that's right. I forgot the state.
So in about 45 years, there's been little improvement. To what extent are there Mexican-American leaders today in elected office?
Unelected? They don't change. They're yes men. And that's it. I point out things that need to be fixed, things that need to be done, and come back and they're still the same. So nothing's going to change because they don't voice their opinion. They just go and sit there and wait for somebody else to direct the direction they're going.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about politics. If you feel comfortable answering, fine. If not, we can pass on. I lost my.
Before we go, let me get a drink.
what are you part of? Were you part of any of the political parties?
I'm a Democrat. Democrat.
Democrat.
Yeah. And
Were you ever part of the Raza Unida party?
oh yeah, I was. We walked. We during the 70s. I was in El Paso with the Raza Unida. I was in Austin, helping out, backing candidates that were. So,
Like Ramsey and Jose Angel?
mhm.
Do you think that the Raza Unida party was a reasonable alternative for Mexican Americans in Uvalde?
Not really. Not really.
Any particular reasons why not?
The candidate pool. And again, in Uvalde, like I said again, it's controlled by a certain amount of people, and either you're working for them, or you're working by yourself. And either way, if you're working with them, they get fired. If you're working by yourself, who's going to hire you to do jobs? Okay, so it's control, and either you bend or you break.
And in 2016, it still hasn't changed that much?
Same thing.
Wow.
It's
What motivated you to work with the Raza Unida party?
just to help them out. Just
So, because you were a student leader and have been involved all this time, what issues do you consider or important or valuable to the Mexican American community here?
in the political sense, in the monetary sense, what?
In political sense, because there hasn't been changes, I suspected, not too much, but have there been, from the old days, have there been folks rise to where they now have a little bit more economic power, like yourself, for example?
The thing about Uvalde is getting back to the control. If anything's going to happen, let's say, for instance, I decide to run for mayor, and got George Strait running for mayor. They'll convince Lupe Ramos to run for mayor and split the vote. Okay, so that's the way that works. They'll convince them, because why? Because you work for them. Why? Because, and that's the way it's been, even from the 70s to now. They still inject somebody in there to split the vote so they can get their candidate in.
And it works every time?
90% of the time.
As you were going through all of this, is there a specific change that you were emotionally invested in? A change that you perhaps hoped for that didn't happen?
No, not. Not that I can.
If you could paint the future, what would you like to see in the future happen in Uvalde?
That the people will get more involved. Like I said, they're not involved. You can count the people that are going to be doing anything at any given time, because everybody else is apathetic about it. They don't want to get involved. Like I said again, because of the work situation. They feel that they're not going to make a change. They're not going to really create a change, and they get involved. So
it doesn't matter who you put in.
It's not going to change.
Same. What are you working on now? Is there anything you're working on?
No. I retired from the phone company, and that's it.
So what's your handicap?
My handicap, I quit playing golf when I retired from the phone company.
Really?
Bought me a new set of clubs, and I played maybe 3 times a year. When I was working, I was playing 3 times a week. Yeah. I hunt. I'm a bow hunter, and I do that.
Yeah.
Deer, elk, rabbits.
You go up to Colorado? Or? You go up to
New Mexico.
New Mexico.
Yeah, I got a nephew in New Mexico.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Any observations, comments, perhaps a question that we didn't ask?
No, I think I've covered as far, like I said, the job situation is primarily the only thing that controls this town. And the people that control the town are not going to allow any industries to come in that will take away their labor force. Even Walmart had a hard time getting in. But then Walmart also has their controlling force as far as pay and all that. So there's really nothing to be done unless you get rich and be one of those guys that controls the town.
I noticed I missed a couple of questions, so with your permission, I'd like to go back. And it goes back to the walkout. And how did your feelings change about yourself during the walkout?
I felt good. As far as a change, I thought I was doing a lot of good. I thought I was helping the movimiento. But like I stated earlier, that the change was coming whether we walked out or not. It might have taken longer, but not much longer, I don't think.
Before the walkout, did you identify with the Chicano movement?
Oh, yeah.
Did your attitudes change after the walkout towards the Chicano movement?
No, and I still support it, and the efforts put out by the people are noticeable to some extent, but like I said, the change was coming. It's done. It'll continue going, and it all started, like I said, with the blacks in the integrated South, and because of that, the change was going to happen.
It had already been set in motion.
Yeah.
For you personally, was your experience as through the walkouts, was that a political awakening for you?
No, I had realized all this prior to that.
Is there anything that you saw during the walkout that you hadn't seen before?
No.
What was the overall effect that the walkout had on you?
it pointed out a lot of the stuff that, you know, that I had known about, but it was still kind of concealed in the school system, in the town itself, because, like I said, the atmosphere here was not very friendly toward the people, and it still isn't.
So, in your opinion, did the walkout have an effect on this community?
No,
Wow.
no. It's still controlled by the same people. The people are still not willing to get involved. So it really didn't have any effect at all.
How did participating in the walkout make you feel? Did it make you feel with a sense of pride, or?
It did. It did. It made me like I said, being a student leader, helped me with the younger generation. They, I would say, looked up to me, and they would admire the fact that I was putting my degree aside to help. To help.
So how did you stay motivated for 6 weeks?
That's a hard question. I guess the motivation came from the rest of the people, the rest of my friends, the rest of the Mexicanos that I was dealing with. Because we were very united as far as that. I mean, we'd have a lot of meetings. We'd have a lot of get together. We attend rallies. Like I said, we were in Austin. We were in El Paso. We were helping out in Cristal.
So your participation in the walkout led to some sort of a political activism? Would you have done those things if there was no walkout? Would you have gone to Austin? Would you have gone to El Paso?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Do people still talk about the walkout?
No.
Do people judge you for your role in the walkout?
Pardon?
Do people judge you for your role in the walkout?
No, I don't think they do. At least not that I've heard of. I think everybody has forgotten about the walkout. It's been 45 years, 40.
45. Was it worth it?
I thought about that. The walkout cost me a degree, my high school degree. And I think overall, yeah, it was worth it.
Who did you confide in about the walkout? Do you have a circle of friends?
Yeah, I have, but no, nothing to that effect.
How have relationships shaped over time since the walkout? Because you were a student leader.
I don't know. As far as what relationships to whom?
Relationships with the folks that saw you stick your neck out, the folks that were on the other side saying, "Hey, this guy's."
Could I have a drink of water?
Absolutely.
The class of 70 was the one that walked out. And I think we are more unified with the gringos.
With the what?
With the gringos.
Oh.
That stayed in school and got the degree. And they don't look down on us. Every class has a reunion, right? We get together sometimes twice a year. We have get together 5 years. The class of 70, Mexicanos and the gringos. We're more unified. We're closer together, I think. There's no animosity.
So they saw the value, the Anglos saw the value in your actions.
Well, I don't know if they did or not, but they
or appreciated what you did.
They you know, we get together. Our class, 70 class, has the most participants in a class reunion. And that was told to us by the bank because we have an account that we set up. Every school has every class has an account. It said that we put more deposits for our class reunion than any other class. They have tried to get multi-class reunions, and we don't go. Class of 70 doesn't go. We have our own.
The class of 70 sticks together.
We don't go.
You made an interesting comment that the walkout cost you your degree. I assume you meant your high school graduation.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result of being out for 6 weeks, you weren't able to graduate?
Nobody was.
So
and the kids,
everybody that walked out did not graduate?
Did not graduate, and the kids were retained at grade because of it.
So they either had to go back a whole another year, or... Wow.
You didn't know that? Well,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
When you said that...
we didn't get our degree.
When you said I didn't get my degree, and I knew you weren't talking about St. Ed's, I knew you were talking about high school. So the folks didn't get to graduate.
Yeah.
Did a lot of folks go the next year to get their...
I got a GED.
Yeah.
And I think a majority of them got their GED.
Through adult ed or...
Mm-hmm. And I think as overall, I don't think the walkout had any bearing as to your occupational. Because I see Miss Perez, and she's a teacher. See Olga Charles, she does different works for community. Albert Santos is a professional student. I got a job in the labor force. I retired, so I've got friends that went on and got their degrees, and they're still working. Some of them were in the military, and that's all they did, just go in the military, and that's it. They got jobs here and there, but nothing. But as far as the walkout itself and how it affected your occupation, I don't think it had anything. And I don't think it would have changed mine. Maybe. if I'd have gone to a different school, I might have stayed longer. I might have gotten a degree in something or scholarship. Like I said, I was very intelligent. People look at me and they say, you look dumb as shit. Excuse me.
Well, you got accepted to St. Edward's, and that's not easy.
So,
they take folks that are going to succeed.
Mm-hmm. So, but I don't, like I said, I don't see any change whether we walked out or not walked out, whether you went to school or didn't go to school afterwards. The job you got is probably the one you would have gotten either way. But like I said, I would have probably gotten a degree somewhere or doing something.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to say for the record? Any random thoughts, ideas?
No.
Where do you see Uvalde in the year 2025 and the year 2030? Are the kids getting educated? Are they coming to this community college?
I don't think that there will be any change in Uvalde. Not till the so-called people that control the town change. Unless if they allow industry to come in, then there'll be some venues for the people to be able to move around, be able to get, a job that doesn't depend on them.
You did mention that Walmart was able to come in here, so they obviously had to figure out how to navigate the system.
Well, money talks. Money talks. The land where they built Walmart is owned by Briscoe.
What a surprise.
Wow. And he has a ag extension, or ag, what do you call it? Exemption on that land.
Mm-hmm.
They paid $29 million, and yet he still has a ag extension exemption. They got the fort, they got a little strip mall there, they got a house, nursing home. Yet he still has exemption. No. That's what I heard. They paid $29 million for that property.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Now, I can understand people getting their ag exemption if you're yourself are farming the land, but not to rent it out to somebody else to farm. I mean, you ought to pay your taxes.
Right.
And that's how it is here. You don't pay taxes, it's write off. Find some way to get around the system.
That means the school district gets less money, and
Yeah.
community college gets less money.
Mm-hmm.
The city gets less money.
Yep.
That's an old trick.
Of course. And like I said, it's controlled by the people, and there ain't much you can do about it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Lugo.
Mm-hmm.
Really appreciate your comments.
I'm hoping I put some insight in.
Every interview is worth its weight in gold, because every one of us has we're like a world, and
Mm-hmm.
every world has a different concept or a different idea of what's going on. So, thank you very, very much for your comments.
You're welcome.